Mr. O.P. Yadav, budget days are always special. The context has changed. The expectations have changed. One thing doesn't change. No matter how much you relax income tax slabs, people will stay. How much can it go down even further? Isn't it? That expectation doesn't go away.
So now, income tax, we have seen the reforms, and we have seen the Income Tax Act 2025 is coming into effect from 1/4/2026.
That's right.
Now, there is another important aspect that still the rule have to notify it for the Income Tax Act 2025, which have to come into effect. The people are expecting, expectations never ends. But last year we have seen, after so many years, there were huge tax relief. There were tax slabs were lower down. Now you have to pay 30% tax only after 25 lakh in the new tax regime. There was also in the 2024 budget, standard deduction was increased under new tax regime from 50,000 to 75,000.
Yeah.
Then there are also for private sector employees that 80CCD and NPS deduction was enhanced to 14%.
Yeah.
Now the people say expectations, and now PM said, and also Finance Minister said, that we are in the path of reform agenda, and if the reform should continue with continuity of policy. If you keep policy changes that affect the decision making and the growth. So the policy has to continue. Now there is another issue on the tax slabs and tax rate. As already said, we are not hoping for any major shift in the tax rate and tax slabs. But
But I have to ask you, without
Yes.
tinkering with policy too much, is it possible for the government to expand the zero tax slab? Because that is an expectation. And also, the perennial expectation of why can't the super rich be taxed more? Is that something we can expect in this budget?
now about the zero tax slabs, because government also want to have the tax base. Now if you increase this, now today the salaried employees has not to pay tax till 12.75 lakhs. But the exemption limit under new tax regime is only 4 lakh rupees. So now it cannot be done that if this rate slab is made more further higher, rebate is given extending from 12.75 lakh to say the other to 12 lakh, then the tax base will go down.
Inflation adjustment is still expected, sir. At least if not in the slabs, then perhaps in the in the standard deduction there should be at least some inflation adjustment, right? Because now you're used to, in any case, getting those tax swaps till no tax until 4 lakhs if you're earning more than 12.75 and no tax if your salary is 12.75 lakh or below. But on the tax front, sir, I think one of the fears, especially among people who are married, is that our married couple is going to be taxed together. And that is something which a lot of chatter has been around, Shweta, which I think, we should maybe spend a minute trying to understand.
Go ahead,
the tax rationale. Mr. Yadav, do you think there is any rationale in taxing married couples together?
See, I am hearing this new.
Has it been done anywhere in the world?
No, we have in the Income Tax Act itself, but which are governed by Portuguese Civil Code under Section 5A.
Okay.
Right? But whatever it is discussed now, this go against the basic concept of taxation, because we are already discussing at a certain part. There is a clubbing provision under Income Tax Act for spouse income is clubbed
for housing.
Right? And I am not only housing, whatever spouse earn the income, if the asset is gifted by the husband to wife or wife to husband, then income generated is taxed in the case of the who has given the gift to the asset.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, therefore, I don't see the near future this provision is going to come into effect that husband and wife is going to get taxed together.
Okay.
So that's not the
So that
expectation
fear
on your
getting
part.
allayed, unless Section B of the finance minister's speech has a surprise that pops up. But at least we have a former commissioner of the income tax saying that it's unlikely to happen.
Shweta was talking about taxing the ultra rich. This is the conversation that keeps coming up every single time. The income tax debate comes up during budget and everything. And this debate usually is done in studios where none of us are super rich.
Yes.
So it's okay, it's so fair for us to stand up and
We
say
have Mr.
we should tax the super
Rakesh.
rich.
Mr. Rakesh Har in the
All right.
studio. We have so I think people like us want the super tax to be taxed more.
I think,
Super rich to be
Mr.
taxed more.
No, no, but
Reverse
Mr.
strata
Modi,
of society here amongst us. But let me quickly take this
So
question.
continue with that discussion of clubbing of income. I have advocated there is one provision, very interesting provision, where if the father-in-law or mother-in-law give gift to the daughter-in-law, the gift is gone. Now, the income generated from the gift is to tax in the head of father-in-law or mother-in-law who has gifted that asset. So, this provision has to go, because now
it's
many
retrograde.
daughter-in-laws now working, and sometimes counterproductive. It is not anti-evidence. The daughter-in-law is in higher slip, and father-in-law, mother-in-law lower slip. Then government is going to lose.
Right.
So, what is the
some
purpose?
reforms are also needed as
Yes,
far as
this-
the Income
this
Tax
reform-
Act is
yes,
concerned.
yes.
Let's quickly get in Lloyd Matthias in this conversation. Lloyd, very good morning to you. The expectations always continue to be high when it comes to how much we are going to charge, what sort of taxes will come into force as and when Nirmala Sitharaman gets in the pit of the house and starts delivering the budget. But in your expectation, an economy that is largely led by consumption, and especially of that of premium products, even FMCG volumes and growth are largely now being driven by premiumization of products. In a consumption-led economy, do you believe the government will in fact at all consider taxing the super rich higher than what they already pay? Is there even a merit in that conversation?
Good morning, Shweta, Krishna, Rakesh, and Karthik. I think taxing the super rich has always been a very, thought of proposition. I don't think that is likely to happen, but this is just my gut feel. My sense is that taxing the super rich is always more a statement for the masses. It's a kind of political statement. I think the net additional revenue that the government accrues by virtue taxing the super rich will not be substantive. So besides it being a political statement. So, my sense is it may not happen, given the fact that last year's budget did a fair degree of tax rationalization. And of course, it wasn't for the super rich, it was for the people at large to boost consumption. I don't think they might tinker it. That is my sense. And I really don't think that's one of the big imperatives. I think if I were to list out kind of the big things that are likely to happen or should happen, I think the focus on growth and consumption, boosting consumption, I think that is important. And that will happen on the back of macro stability. That, in a sense, has been provided to a large extent, almost obviating the pressures on the tariffs that have come about. Right? India has still grown. So I think that has been one big thing. The second that I personally would like to see, and I still think we have a long way to go, is suddenly over the last 2 or 3 years, that ease of doing business has receded in the background. Earlier, it was a big call out. And then, of course, there was some issue about the rankings being manipulated. I think we've got a long way to go when it comes to ease of doing business. I hope and pray that the finance minister really works back at that critical aspect, really making the whole issue of burdens, compliances, reduce the whole, really kind of push forward on that front, really ease of doing business. I think that's very important. I also think there is a fair degree of need for MSME support. Well, at one level, we're talking of PLIs for manufacturing, and that's a long process. And I believe the needle is moving and is positive. But I think supporting MSMEs, I think that is a big area in terms of both kicking off employment, but also boosting consumption. I think that is one of the critical aspects. So that's really, in a sense, both my wish list and my hope for the budget.
Okay.